Welcome to American Dreams, Keys to Success, with your host, Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. I'm here today visiting with Herman Rowland. He's the chairman of the board of the Jelly Belly Company here in Fairfield, California. Welcome to today's show.
Thank you, Alan. Glad to be here.
So, Herm, tell me your background. Fascinating being in this wonderful candy company and seeing all sorts of things around me that I've enjoyed for years, growing up as a kid. But how did you get into the Jelly Belly?
Well, my gosh, it goes back a long ways, Alan. 1869 with the great-grandparents coming over from Germany. And then my grandfather joining his brothers in Chicago in the very early 1900s, 1903 or 4 or 5. And family business started in 1898. And then he became president of that company for a period of time. In 1917, he went to Portland, Oregon, made candy corn up there.
Candy corn? Was he one of the first makers of candy corn?
No, actually there was a maker before us, but we kind of took it over in 1898, and we were the candy corn king of America, and made the world's greatest candy corn.
Wow.
Still do today. But any rate, so he went to Portland and found out that wasn't a place to make candy because of the high humidity and everything. Of course, there's no air conditioning back then. Then he went down to Oakland in 1922 and made candy corn there quite successfully. And then my dad married his only daughter, beautiful, beautiful young lady. And then he went into the business with my grandfather. And he was the mechanical kind of guy. It was a real small business, and but it was real tough working because it was all by hand. And so he developed a lot of equipment and was ahead of his age with the equipment. And then, of course, I came along in 1941, and I went to work when I was about 13 with him. And learned every nut and bolt in the factory. I don't have much of an education except for learning from my dad how to run a candy factory, how to put a candy factory together, every nut and bolt, every wire, every machine. And of course today that's helped me a lot to go ahead and develop the company.
So when you were growing up, your pathway was set that you always wanted to step in and run the company and per se. Or?
Well, school was tough for me, and I was they didn't know what to call you. I just thought I was a big dumb fat kid, and that's what I was. But I didn't realize that I had all the things that they talk about today, dyslexia and all of the fancy words for it. And it's hard for me to read and hard for me to write and hard for me to do all that kind of stuff. So that kind of puts you in a box off to the side. But it does give you a certain amount of character when you have that kind of a problem. Got into high school, got very into shop, metal shop, wood shop, art, all those good things. I love biology of all things. But swimming and football. And football gave me, taught me how to work with people, taught me how to take direction. Learning the playbook was even tough for me, but boy, I learned every single bit of it, and I loved to play ball. I had a wonderful coach. So that was a big thing for me. And also all the way through high school, every summer, I worked for my dad at the factory, and learning how to, again, repair machines, but also making candy. I learned how to make all the different candies there were. So I got married in 60, and I went to work full time, and did every job there was in the place. And then it went on from there.
So when you finally, what year did you step in as chairman of the board?
Well, that's... I'd have to go to the archives to really try to find out what that was. I know that we incorporated in the early 70s, and they needed a president, so my parents put me in as president. But our company didn't run that. It was a small company, family company. We started off in the 60s with 10 to 12 people, and then we grew, and pretty soon we had 30, and then we had 50, and then we had 100, and today we have over 800 and some odd people working for us in 3 different plants.
Are all the plants here in the U.S.? Or?
Well, yeah, we have another plant in North Chicago, Illinois, and that's actually the factory that my grandfather went to in the early 1900s. It was started in 1898. Wow. And so one of the original buildings in that particular location were built in 1913. And we're still working out of one of those buildings. We've added on to and bought buildings around it and built the location. It's old, it's clean, it's beautiful, and paid for.
A key in this society today to have things that are paid for. I'm visiting here today with Herman Rowland. He's the chairman of the board of the Jelly Belly factory here in Fairfield, California. We'll be right back after these messages.
Protecting your family's health and welfare is a sacred trust. At Greenstein Rogoff Olsen Company, we know that sound financial planning will protect them now and in the future. We're certified public accountants with tax services for the highly successful. For your business and your family, call GrowCo.
Greenstein Rogoff Olsen Company will help you manage your financial affairs so you can focus on what's really important in life.
GrowCo, helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. I'm here today visiting with Herman Rowland. He is the chairman of the board of the Jelly Belly Candy Company here in Fairfield, California.
Great to be here, Alan.
Thank you, Herm. When we were talking before about how your family had the history into the candy industry, we left off about the mid-'70s. You began to take a substantial role as the president of the family candy company. But where did the name Jelly Belly come from?
Well, in the late 60s, we started making all different types of candies. And one of the candies was a mini gourmet jelly bean. That's the bean that President Reagan ate while he was governor. Now, in 1976, a man named David Klein called me up. And I thought, who's this guy? And he wanted us to make the world's best. He says, I know you make the best now, but I want to make it better. I want to make it with real puree and real orange juice and real chocolate and real stuff. Can you do that? Well, yeah, I think we have the technology to do that. And so from that point, he started in 76, 77. By 78, the products that he came up with, his idea for the name Jelly Belly and the idea of putting the real ingredients in the center and selling one flavor at a time at a very high price, did very well. And in the late, let's see, when was it, 79, 80, we bought him out. And then, of course, Reagan came into office. And in 81, when he was inaugurated, the inauguration committee called us up really in January of about January 3rd or 4th and said, hey, would you supply jelly beans to the inauguration? And we said, sure, we would. So we supplied 7,000 pounds to the inauguration, 1,000 jars that sat on tables all over the Washington, D.C. And then we backed that up with a case of beans at each table, and those are information tables. And we were invited to go to the inauguration. It was incredible to go to all the different balls and go see this whole thing happen. But most exciting thing for us was to see the jar of Jelly Belly on every information table, every place we went.
Well, seeing such a strong demand, I imagine coming into the inauguration, you're certainly on the map by that time. How were the orders?
Well, we actually fell from the first of the year for about 3 months. We fell about 77 weeks behind on orders. 77 weeks within 3 months. 2 years almost behind. And we had to send letters out to our customers early on and say, hey, you are a customer. If you want to have beans, you need to place your order for the next year. Well, we did that, and within a month or so, that whole year was filled up for both our factories. And then we sent another letter out saying you need to place it for 2 years. Now, these huge, big stores, which would normally, they don't hardly even let you call on them, were actually sending their VPs to our office trying to set up quantities of product for their store. But we wanted to be fair to all our customers. We gave them an allowance of what they had gotten in the past. They could have that again plus a little bit. But I don't think we did 10% of the sales of jelly beans during that year, 1981. The whole world, everybody that could make a bean called it the President's beans, Ronnie's beans, whatever. We did not want to sell the beans. We didn't want to use Ronald Reagan's name or whatever. We just made Jelly Belly. And we never, we made the beans perfect. We didn't try to rush the process and make more because we wanted to be the ones that were left over after this whole thing came to, slow down. It took 2 years for it to slow down. But we're here today. So many people said when Reagan's out of office, you're going to be gone. Well, sorry. When you have something that tastes good and is fun to eat, people want to continue to eat it. And we work very hard to make every single bean that we produce perfect.
You're worldwide on distribution right now?
Yes, we are. We're in about 70 countries, and it's continuing to grow. And our Thailand plant, we built a Thailand plant. My oldest son runs that plant. We've been over there about 4 or 5 years now. But that plant takes care of all of our international sales all around the world. And that's continuing to grow. Really, it's all kind of newfound territory. So that's really fun.
So in managing this global infrastructure, I guess you started from small to big, but you managed this quite well. What are your dreams for 5, 10 years down the road?
Well, I think my dreams are for my kids to run this place, and they are doing that. My daughter right now is heading up the company with the president of the company, and I'm incredibly proud of her. My 2 sons are in the company. My other daughter, her husband is in the company, and I have 3 or 4 grandkids in the company, and hopefully someday I'll see my 12 or 13-year-old great-grandson get down here too. I don't want to have him hear that, but I've got 11 grandkids and 2 great-grandkids, and that just thrills me. That's what I'm here for. This is a family business. And although I hate to get into this, but it's tougher every day to stay in business in this country and in California. It's really tough, but we're fighting. We're fighting to be here, and we're fighting to stay in business.
It does seem that we're in a world ever changing with that, but the fact that you're surrounded by family and you're able to successfully transition to the next generation is really a compliment to you. Not many businesses are able to see that. It's the people that work for you. It's the people that believe in your company, and we have a couple meetings with them every year, all 800 people, and I always talk about the aspect of they're making the most beautiful bean there is in the world, and many other confections that we produce. But every single bean that they make, billions of beans, is going to go in somebody's mouth. And they treat that bean that way. They respect the bean, and they try to make every single bean perfect. And I know all the folks are doing that. Oh, what's your latest flavor bean that you just came out with?
Well, probably Tabasco is really, really a fun.
Really?
We use the real Tabasco, and we put that in the bean. And watch out, because it is hot. But you can eat them, and it gets really hot for a minute or 2, but then it smooths out, and it's that wonderful Tabasco flavor.
I'm visiting here today with Herman Rowland. He's the chairman of the board of the Jelly Belly Candy Company. We'll be right back after these messages.
He's the world's most trustworthy man. Tax filing deadlines are scheduled around his vacation calendar. The IRS agent who audited his client apologized.
I don't always advise people on their taxes.
But when I do, I save them every penny legally possible.
GrowCo CPAs and Advisors.
Come to GrowCo and stay wealthy, my friend.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olsen.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Herman Rowland. He's the chairman of the board of the Jelly Belly Candy Company here in Fairfield, California.
Great, Alan.
So, Herm, we were speaking before about the days of Ronald Reagan, and I'm just fascinated. Here you have next to you a jar, Waterford crystal jar. Is there a story behind that?
Oh, is there a story behind it? Alan, this is the jar the Waterford Crystal Company supplied to Ronald Reagan while he was in the White House. And it really starts when Ronald Reagan was at governor, and he had a small jar with a gold leaf seal of the governorship on it. And they would get the beans from us. Helene Von Dam would call up and say, send me a couple more cases, and we'd send them the mini gourmet jelly beans. We didn't have, that was before Jelly Belly. And so they would pack that into those jars, and he'd use those jars to give away to dignitaries and to friends and whoever came. But he'd also use it, and he told me personally about this when I visited him in the Oval Office. He said, I used to take those jars, and when my cabinet would get out of hand, I'd slide that jar down the table and I'd tell him, dig into those beans, have a few beans, let's get this meeting back into order. And I heard it many times, and I saw him quoted many times in the paper about that. But when you go in the Oval Office and you meet the man in 1981 like we did, it was, I met him when he was governor. But when he's president, it's like, wow. And I don't get a lump in my throat very often, but when you're ready to walk down the hall and go in the Oval Office, and you see him standing there and greets us and just breaks down all the tension right away just by how he welcomes you. And then he told that story again about how he used the jar. And then next thing we know, we're looking in the back of the office, there's a guy digging this big, tall Waterford crystal jar at the couch, and the president is laughing. So, and then this guy turns around and he comes walking up, he says, hi, I'm George Bush. And he was back there digging, looking for his favorite licorice bean. And so he introduced himself like we didn't even know who he was. And so that's the kind of guys, those guys are, they're guys. And they were really, really terrific. But this jar was throughout the White House, and it was on the conference table, and he used this jar on the conference table just like he did the jar he did in California. And but this jar kind of has a little story to it. See this little thin lid?
Yeah.
They actually had to start removing them from all the tables and the coffee tables in the White House, because the guards at night, Secret Service, they'd get in there, or the cleaning people, and they'd dig it to get the jeans, and they'd set this thing down here, and they'd set it in such a, it would break the jar. So it would break this lid. So that was the big story. They had to remove the jars every night from the conference table, you know. So just a little inside stories were a lot of fun.
I gotta ask you, Harry Potter, these weird flavors. Mm-hmm. How did that ever come about?
Well, we actually started working on some, just for fun. We worked on hot dog and hamburger and ketchup and pickle relish and mustard and mayonnaise, and all of those have a different story behind them. But then Harry Potter came along, the book came along, and we were asked by one of the people that had licenses for Harry Potter, could you make Harry Potter for us? Well, they wanted sardine, and they wanted spinach, and they wanted some, different earwax, and they wanted dirt. And so we said, sure, we already had some of it produced because we were playing with that already. And so we went ahead and did those things. And everyone has a little different story behind it. The vomit, which is like I thought I could never do. I had a lot of sleep over that. But one of my employees came in and said, Herm, do you remember we did that pepperoni pizza? It was so bad that we couldn't eat it. You remember that? And I said, yeah. I said, okay, let's throw another batch together. It was like 4 years before that. Throw another batch together, let's see what it was like. So we did. I tasted it. It was pretty bad, but it needed to be worse. It needed to have a little acid in it because when you throw up, you have a little burny, you know. So we put citric acid in it, and that became the Harry Potter vomit. And you know what's so crazy? Out of all the other ones, rotten egg and spinach and moldy cheese and everything else, earwax, the vomit was the one that all the kids wanted to feed grandma and to feed their kid, you know, I mean, to have fun with.
So I have to ask you, what is your favorite flavor of jelly bean?
You know, I get asked that a lot. And the other day I was driving, I was out on the route truck with my son. He delivers candy to our stores, and hadn't done that before. And I'm sitting there and I'm eating a little packet of Jelly Belly, one bean at a time. And I'm just sitting there and it's quiet in the truck, we're bouncing along, and I'm eating one flavor. I said, that's really good. And then I ate the next one. That's really good. Ate the next one. You don't get a chance to do that very often. You don't sit there and just eat one flavor at a time. And I'm going like, those are really good. But you know, when it really comes down to it, I think juicy pear or peach are two of my favorite flavors. And
very good. Well, Herm, I appreciate being on today's show.
All right, good. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for all the questions, and
Thank you.
Good luck to you guys.
Thank you. I'm visiting here today with Herman Rowland of the Jelly Belly Candy Company here in Fairfield, California. We'll be right back after these messages.
You're listening to American Dreams with Alan Olsen on AM 1220 KDOW.